Welcome back to Morning Extra. This is GBS Morning Extra, hashtag GBS Morning Extra. And the debate here is very heated, especially for the following the events that happened during the weekend. And let's look what the guys are saying on Twitter. We have James Mwangi following up, say the newspaper review, very heated. We have Emmanuel Homa behind the headlines saying, the show is really good. I like the Wakili arguments. Wakili, you got a fan. And also I have Gloria from Pipeline, and of course Joel from Lolongo. And Stephanie from Kisumu is also watching. Thank you so much. And also Evelyn is also watching from Kasarani too. Okay, guys, let's now talk about the parliament. There was a report that was released on Friday, and the Kibunja Trust, Mzalendo Trust report, claiming that some of these MPs you see in funerals, in churches, typically they don't speak in parliament. What do you make of that?
I think it tells us the level of, the level of, for lack of a better word, Wakili, maybe if you help me a word that I can describe those who cannot even utter a single word in parliament. You know, it's a very unfortunate state of affairs that people on 8th of August queued from 4 in the morning to elect people who do not take part in their legislative role in parliament. It's very unfortunate. And some of these members of parliament we see outbursting in funerals, in fact accompanying politicians for huge donations, are the same ones who have been implicated in this, in the Mzalendo report, as not having contributed in parliamentary activities. But
students claiming there's a lot of work that is being done. There are people who should
I know.
So they do the underground work.
I saw his comments about underground work, but Kenyans want to see that the level of commitment you have in funerals should be the same level of commitment you have in parliament, because that parliament is your workplace. That is where they elected you to go and represent them. And you see, if a member of parliament does not take part in legislation, then there's a problem. Yeah, there's a problem. Kenyans must see you in parliament in the equal measure they see you in funerals and in contributions in churches.
Maybe talking much in funerals sells than talking more in parliament.
That should be the other way. It should be the other way around. You are supposed to deliver based on the office you are elected in. And if you're elected as a member of parliament, you have to deliver. Okay. And it's very unfortunate that some of those members of parliament clearly we see around every time are the ones who are not speaking in parliament, or not just speaking, because speaking is different, but contributing constructively to issues of national concern in the National Assembly or Senate.
Okay, do you think these MPs are total letdown to the electorates?
To say they are a total letdown would be to underestimate the term I would have personally used. They are a disgrace. They are a disgrace to society. And for avoidance of doubt, the work of a member of parliament is clearly cut and stated. Under Article 95 of our Constitution, a member of parliament has to do 3 things. One is legislation, making laws. It is common knowledge that we don't make laws in funerals, we don't make laws in harambes, we don't make laws in churches, we don't make laws on the streets as we travel to our constituencies. And therefore, a member of parliament who has not uttered any statement in parliament means this member has not partook of this function. He has not made any law or made a significant contribution in the process of lawmaking. Number 2 is representation. Under Article 95, representation is key. A member of parliament at National Assembly level represents people in his constituency. You do not have to represent them in funerals because they are present in that funeral. They can represent themselves. Where you need to represent them is in the National Assembly, so that when matters of general importance are being discussed in the country within the National Assembly, you give in your voice, you contribute, aligning your thoughts to the needs of your constituents. And therefore, if you do not talk in parliament, that second responsibility is watered down. Number 3 is a member of parliament has an obligation of oversight. What then is oversight? Oversight at National Assembly is putting the national government on toes and scrutinizing the expenditure. If you are not talking in parliament, it means even at the committee level, when your committee is making inquiries about expenditure by national government, it is unlikely that you will talk. And therefore, that particular thing on oversight is actually not being effective. What Oscar Sudi is saying, I think, is out of ignorance, that the work of MPs is in the constituency. At the constituency level, we have what we call the National Government Constituency Development Fund, overseen by a committee of competent persons elected or supposed to be elected by the constituents. And that is why even if an MP were to die today, the CDF projects will continue. They do not require any expertise in terms of the presence of the MP for such development to continue. And therefore, the work of member of parliament primarily is in the House.
Okay, and majority of these MPs are first-time MPs in parliament who don't contribute more. Do you think maybe it's like maybe they don't know the orders of the House?
In fact,
or
it's the
is it
other
that
way
they
around.
have not been recruited well?
In the Senate, majority of those who have sponsored bills are first-time legislators. So it's the other way around. Is Oscar Sudi a first-time member of parliament? Is people like you know, other MPs who have not spoken? Majority of them really are members who have been elected twice and above. So I was looking at that report, and it indicated that in the Senate, majority of those who had sponsored bills were first-time legislators, and especially women.
Okay.
But again, you know, in the Senate, is that almost half of the senators are first-time. You know, most of the senators, almost half.
But you know, MPs argue that they are over 400. So before you get a chance to speak, it also takes time.
Let me tell you, how many times does John Buddy speak during a single sitting? Almost 4 or 5 times. How many times does Opiyo Wandayi speak? Several times. Oscar Sudi is never in parliament. He's busy in the funeral, retrogressively abusing the president and anyone who thinks like the president. Oscar Sudi should be telling us that I'm always in parliament, trying to catch the speaker's eye, and even today you don't have to catch the speaker's eye because you are many. You just press some button and your name reflects on the speaker's, wherever the speaker sits, and says, Oscar Sudi, speak. That can never be an excuse that there are many in parliament. It can never be a coincidence that today it is Mbadi, tomorrow it is Mbadi, next day is Opiyo, next day is Millie Odhiambo, is Wanga. No. It is by choice.
No, I would differ a bit, Wakili, based on the number of times a member of parliament speaks in parliament. If you have a position like that which Mbadi holds, it gives you, they give you more credit,
An upper hand.
yeah, an upper hand than any other member of parliament to debate or to contribute on the issues on the floor. But a good example would be the member of parliament for Endebess, Honorable Pukose. Does he hold any senior position in the House? He's not a chief whip. He's not any deputy of any position in the House. But he could be in a committee. But he gets a lot of time to contribute because there is that urge for him to represent his people. You know, Wakili stated his point number 2 was representation. There's that urge that he came in parliament to represent his people. So I think it's for those who are not contributing, it's absolute lack of interest. And those who are contributing are people who are interested in serving their people in the right way.
Okay, and do you think now it's time for electors now to start gauging their leaders based
We
on
should
that,
start
based
thinking.
on that Mzalendo report?
I think we should start thinking because there are people who we have elected so many times. And by the way, we should not think that those who are speaking a lot in parliament are the same people who on the ground are working or there is a lot to show on their ground. You know, there is a record of a member of parliament who is now not in parliament. It's a former member of parliament. I will not mention his name, who was very vocal in parliament. But if you do an assessment of his constituency, it is one of the poorly developed in the country. So yeah, as much as we also want these members of parliament to be outgoing in terms of how they work in parliament, how they speak, how they articulate issues, we also must go down deep where they come from and see what are they doing there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to differ with what my friend...
Before that, you can join the two. Does the fact that not being active in parliament warrant or can it be enough to maybe recall an MP?
It is not a ground
It's not a
for
ground.
recall. It's not a ground for recall. But someone can arguably say he's not being represented and therefore petition for your recall. What I'm saying, and what my brother is saying that I want to disagree with, this notion that you can do development on the ground and not speak in parliament. Ideally, members of parliament are not supposed to travel home to commission classrooms, to do what. Development is a function of national government and county governments. In fact, you can sit in Nairobi as an MP and oversight national government within your constituency and say, in my constituency, this particular school has not been developed, yet we have funds. If you have a functional CDF committee, it will work even in your absence. What members do is that they get involved in the CDFC committees to just have their deals, to cut their deals. Some of these members who purport to be very serious on the ground, moving from every station to another, commissioning a classroom, doing what, they're actually collecting bribes from contractors who are doing that particular work. CDF, through the doctrine of separation of powers, is supposed to be run devoid from members of parliament. A member of parliament is a patron who is supposed to oversight this particular CDF. But what happens in Kenya? Members of parliament get so much deeply entrenched into CDF in the name of development to the exclusion and discrimination of opponents or people within constituencies who never voted for them. Okay. We've seen students saying, the MP is not giving me bursary because I was active on WhatsApp ahead of the elections opposing him. It is not the work of the MP to decide who gets the bursary. It is the work of an independent CDFC committee. What I'm crying for...
So legally they are not supposed to be...
They're not supposed to get involved in CDF.
Okay.
They're not supposed to get involved. They're supposed to do the three things I've told you under Article 95. And if we do that, we shall have a functional parliament. Some of the problems we are facing as a country is because our parliament is not functional. Everyone is at home in the name of saying, I'm commissioning projects, I'm doing this, I'm doing development. And some of those developments, you see or you hear them say, some are just miraculous. Because someone attended a funeral, gave out 100 shillings per constituent who attending the funeral, that to him is development. That to that person is being in touch with the constituents. We need to train our people that it is not about appearance in the constituency. It is the value you are adding. I like how the MCAs are structured. You know, the MCAs have no money for development. The work of the MCAs is supposed to oversight the county governor to ensure that he distributes quality development within the county. And because of the ignorance of our voters, most of the MCAs are voted out on that account, that they have not come with money, they have not given us a daraja here, they have not put up an ECDA classroom, and so forth. So let us advocate for a functional parliament that can operate devoid of these shenanigans of development, and hiding under development. And I have told you, even if we were to remove Oscar Sudi from Kapsaret today, and we have a functional CDF within Kapsaret, and we have a person within the National Assembly who can oversight Kapsaret, we shall have development. I know of members of parliament who are never in their constituencies. They go once in a week. They are still re-elected because their CDFC are functional. Gideon Conchela just goes home, it is said, goes home to launch his campaigns, then on the voting day, and he comes back. But he keeps winning elections. I think he's now doing his 4th term.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what Wakili is also not telling you is that as much as he has drawn a line between members of parliament and CDF, and he has, actually they are patrons, but they call the shots. I mean, they choose who sits in the CDF committees at the constituency level. So
you know that is wrong.
Well,
Legally, the CDFC Act does not allow members of parliament to choose anyone. He is supposed to convene, in fact, not him, the National CDF Committee is supposed to convene a meeting or an electoral area within the constituency and let the constituents elect their representatives to the committee. What happens is what you are saying. You are the MP from Diwa, for example. You come and handpick your cronies, the people you love, let them sit in this committee, and they become your puppets. They cannot have an independent mind. You've captured them, and that is wrong.
Okay, now my question is, do you think MPs are just a replica of what we have as the voters? Because if you don't go home, majority of the MPs will not come back. So you need to continue strengthening that bond by visiting your constituency more, and then that maybe the electors don't care if you talk in parliament, but they care if you come over the Arambes when they invite you.
You know, coming to the Arambes should not be a prerequisite for anybody's election, and also you know, not being there in terms of donations and such kinds of things should not be a prerequisite. What people should look at actually is the amount of work that has been done in the period for which that person was elected. We must start to analyze his performance all the way from parliament. The three things he told us, that of representation, that of legislation, and oversight. So we must analyze those three factors. Have they achieved at least 95% or 90% of them? Okay. If they have not achieved, that person is not eligible for re-election. And I think I like what happened in Nyeri in 2017. They sent away all their members of parliament. Because if you looked at the
Kirinyaga too.
Yeah, I don't know about Kirinyaga, but maybe. But I think we should emulate such counties because the electorate are sensitive of what person are we sending to parliament. And even as we send them to parliament, what returns are they bringing to us? We do not even need to recall him at the middle of his term. Let's just wait for him in 2022. Send him away.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is impossible to recall a member of parliament.
In the middle of his term.
Even at the beginning or at the end. Why? It is these members of parliament who have actually made their law on recall. And they made these laws so difficult and involving and cumbersome that the process of recall will take at least 1 year to even reach at that level of recall. One, they tell you that you cannot recall a member of parliament before he has served half of his time during that particular term. Then after 2.5 years, they give you roadblocks that will take 1.5 years for you to achieve. To even
So by the end of the process, will be
by the end of the process, the IEBC will say, on such a day, we are going to election.
Okay, now let's talk about the handshake. So far, who do you think is the biggest handshake beneficiary? Start with you, Hudson.
You know, my take has always been that Kenyans were the biggest beneficiaries of the handshake. Kenyans in general, not an individual politician or anybody, but Kenyans. Because first of all, the handshake quelled a political crisis in this country. And we all witnessed that when the President and Honorable Raila shook hands, there was a shift, a paradigm shift in terms of the politics of this country. Businesses started to boom and the economy became stable. What we are looking at now is an advanced handshake because now there are other factors that are playing in terms of the interests of some people to want some political positions. I think those who oppose what is going on, the rapprochement between the Uhuru and Raila, are people who are selfish and want all best for themselves, not for Kenyans.
Okay. And Wakili, this handshake, some will say it cooled down the political temperatures, but on the other side, it ignited another political heat to some quarters. Do you think maybe the intention of the handshake maybe was misinterpreted, or maybe some people are taking advantage of that?
I think one, I want to replicate what my good friend Hudson has said, that the biggest beneficiary of this handshake are the people of Kenya. In which sense? This is the sense. Before the handshake, we had an absolute marriage between one William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. Within this handshake, one partner was captured by the other. And the captured partner was Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. He was a father in the house where he had no powers. The woman in the house had overpowered him. He will cook whatever they want. He will tell children, do this. And, you know, Uhuru was like a father who, if the wife goes, the house collapses. And he will do everything to appease the lady in the house. Now, within that marriage, Kenyans were losing billions and billions of shillings in terms of corruption. People will loot within government, and Uhuru will not raise a hand and say, because Uhuru raising a hand, it will mean he is attacking the number two. And number two will rebel and say, I can walk out and join Raila on the other side and bring you down. With the coming of the handshake, we saw an emboldened president now fighting corruption without fear. Because he knows, if the Rift Valley section of Jubilee moves out of Jubilee, I have the ODM to replace and continue with this mission. The second beneficiary is Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru is now a man under peace. He can do his things. He can work from State House and relax somewhere in the evening and go to bed a happy man. Before the handshake, Uhuru will not know which kind of demonstrations were coming up tomorrow, what Raila will say, and he was generally
a very
disturbed and a worried man. But today, he's a man under peace. However, as you rightly put it, forces have taken advantage of this handshake. Raila, for instance, has taken advantage of this handshake to reinvent himself. You know, I was worried that Raila was going to exhaust his tax and his political lives, but the handshake gave him a new lifeline. He has reinvented himself. And even his supporters think that he may make another bar at the 2022 and make a very good show out of it. Otherwise, most of Paul's support Raila Odinga were giving up on his presidential ambitions. Two, he has taken advantage of this handshake to solve his grudge against one William Ruto. Remember, Raila is on record telling William Ruto that you will require me at one time to become president. And that time has come. And what Raila and his support base harbors is to see Ruto not ascending to presidency. Remember, it is William Ruto who denied Raila Odinga presidency in 2013 by joining forces with Uhuru Kenyatta. If Ruto had joined forces with Odinga, it was going to be very difficult for the state to manipulate the system in favor of Uhuru Kenyatta. And since William Ruto moved from Raila Odinga at his hour of need, the greatest moment of need, Raila Odinga wants to pay back and frustrate William Ruto at his greatest time of need. He has taken advantage of that. And lastly, the Central Kenya losers in 2017 elections, the likes of Kavando, the likes of William Kavogo, and many people who lost Central Kenya seats, Dennis Waweru, have now find a chance to regroup and punish William Ruto because they believe, falsely or correctly, that it is William Ruto who cost them nominations on Jubilee. That William Ruto had his own preferred candidates in every constituency. So these former MPs are regrouping because of the handshake to fight William Ruto.
And do you think those regroupments maybe might punish William Ruto?
It will, because it's part of the larger Kieleweke team. You know, if anybody is opposing Ruto, Wakili, they are perceived to be the Kieleweke team.
True.
So, in other words, the members he has mentioned, like Honorable William Kavogo, they are part of the larger Kieleweke team. And clearly, they will form a very huge block in the central, or rather in Mount Kenya region, to oppose William Ruto.
And as Wakila said, do you see any chance of Raila Odinga maybe
They are very
maybe deciding to go for the top seat?
The possibilities are so high. Because remember, he was even nominated, rather elected or appointed as the envoy for infrastructure development in Africa. So he is not even focusing on what his job description now is saying, but you will find him in very stable in Kenyan politics.
And what if a scenario that Uhuru Kenyatta backs Raila Odinga for 2022?
Well, that would mean that
now just the same way the Kalenjin worked with the Kikuyus in 2013, could we now be a chance for Luos and Kikuyus maybe to work together this time round?
I think they are already working together. That will be, if what you're talking about is now a political marriage, because as it is right now, there is no political relationship between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. Because if there was, then there should be a clear indication that either of them would support another for the presidency.
Okay, I'm told the time is not on our side. Wakili, as we wind up, what's your parting shot?
My parting shot is related to the 2022 succession politics as envisaged under the handshake and the politics as they are now. This is my take. In this country, we have two groups of people, two classes. We have the capitalists that we could call the bourgeoisies at one time, and we have the poor masses. Politically, we have capitalists and we have the hustler nation. President Uhuru Kenyatta, Right Honorable Raila Odinga are unlikely to entrust the future of this country in the hands of the poor. The capitalists are regrouping because of their interests. The Central Kenya capitalists will not allow Kenyatta to hand over power to Ruto, who is a stranger on the breakfast table. Ruto, however much he has accumulated, the political elite, the capitalists, still view him as an uninvited guest on the table of richness. And they'll do everything to stop him. That is why the probable candidates for 2022 are 3, or perhaps 4. One is Uhuru Kenyatta, reinventing himself and coming back camouflaging as a prime minister or something of the sort. Number 2 is Raila Odinga, either going for the presidency or reinventing himself under the premier's position. Number 3 is Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi, the gentleman, or so is perceived, of the Kenyan politics. He is also identified as a capitalist who may serve the interests of capitalists. And in the unlikely event that the 3 are not probable candidates, the son of Mwingi, called Kalonzo Musyoka, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, he has also identified, he has been able to suppress the poor man's line, the hustler nation, and is being viewed as a safe haven for the capitalists. They may be comfortable.
So you're also giving him a chance?
I'm giving him a chance.
Okay.
Not as I belong to the hustler nation, but I'm thinking for the capitalists.
Okay.
Otherwise, the other team with William Ruto, it will just it may eleweka. That is not the perceived.
Okay.
My brief parting shots would be in regards to the launching of the Rivertex factory. You know, we have a very big problem in terms of our manufacturing industry. And I think it's a step in the right direction that the president has realized that this is the time to revive our factories. You know, Rivertex had lost direction a decade ago. Companies like Komi had collapsed. Muea's Sugar is also a dead thing. You know, we are looking at majority of our big companies down in the stalls.
Okay.
So what I think the president has realized that we need to reinvent our manufacturing sector.
Okay.
But what I would want to maybe advise him is that we cannot have a complete manufacturing sector if we wanted to contribute 10% of our GDP as he envisions without the small medium enterprises.
Okay.
Let us support SMEs. Let us remove all the barriers of establishment of SMEs.
Okay.
In terms of licensing, there's a lot of costs incurred before someone starts a company
Okay.
to
We are running out
the
of time, unfortunately.
Yes, it's okay.
I hope we'll continue this discussion next
I think the viewers have gotten my point.
Okay. Of course, the discussion continues online.
Yeah,
Hashtag
thank you.
GBS Morning Extra. And thank you so much, gentlemen, for turning up today. Thank you, Bwana Wakili.
Welcome.
Hudson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And also, maybe you continue this discussion next week.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for keeping it GBS and, of course, GBS Morning Extra. It has been a pleasure having you this morning. My name is Tom Muema. And maybe, and not maybe, we'll meet tomorrow for another exciting show. And coming up next is AFCON. Is an AFCON analysis, and of course, what's happening in the sporting world. Remember, Harambee Stars lost yesterday, and my friend Kevin Nyariki will be up next with the sports analysis. Have a good day.